welcome to today's lesson. Today we're still on the descriptive unit. I will erase all of these drawings that I'm making so that you guys will have a clean page afterwards, because you're going to have to take a look at some of this. So, keep something handy where you can kind of write and look at stuff, or maybe listen to this video and then pause. It might be a little bit tricky, but kind of work with me here. I know we're sort of in interesting times. Anyways, regardless, so today we are on our second day of our second unit. We're in descriptive and or poetic. We're going to really kind of take a look at what really could be used for either, because descriptive and poetic both use kind of figurative language, but they both use language which we're going to use to try to describe in a beautiful way with some really beautiful sentences that I know that you guys can all make. So let's kind of jump into this. We're still very much in the introductory stage. I asked you yesterday to write a poem of some sorts. I asked you to watch a TED Ed video about what is poetry and then have fun writing a poem, keeping in mind again that the shortest poem was me, we, and that is a poem according to the ideas and proponents of what poetry is, right? So poems don't have to be this long, complicated thing. They can be short. They can be, right? A haiku has 3 lines. There are traditional Japanese poems, other types, I forget what they're called off the top of my head. I'll look up the name. But they're about 5 lines long and have that same kind of idea of the 5-7-5, so each one has a syllable count, and they have to do more with celebrations of things. Or there are acrostic poems, right, where we have you write your name out in the side. You probably did this when you were a kid, and I would say for M, maybe I would do matronly. I don't consider that a bad word. I think it's sweet to be someone who is motherly, but matronly, right? Maybe I'll do super. Okay, these are obviously poems that usually people in younger grades write, usually grade 3 to 5-ish, but that doesn't make them any less of a poem, and you can make them more complex than just adding one word in, right? There are some beautiful poems written by some published poets where they've done this kind of acrostic style, and they've written these beautiful, nice long poems, and then it just so happens to spell something. So have fun with it. If you're writing something that is closer akin to something that maybe would be in a grade 3-ish to 5, that's fine to start with, right? We can build on those, and sometimes, you know what, honestly, they're fun, and if you're having fun with this unit and you're doing something that you enjoy, then go for it. Don't feel like you need to achieve this kind of, I find that poetry can be really stuffy and snobbish. And I don't know why. Poetry should be fun. It should be an expression of who you are or what you're feeling. And there are different styles. And yes, I am going to ask you to practice some different styles. Some things like acrostics or haikus. We might end up doing some found poetry, which I love. Found poetry is my favorite type. But, these styles are ways to express yourself, and think of it that way. So if you can show me that you can master the ideas of poems, for example, like a found poem, and then you take that idea of found poetry and you tweak the rules a little bit later on, that's fine, right? You're using it to help express who you are and what you're seeing or what you're thinking or what you're feeling, especially in these times where things are a little bit more turbulent, right? Things are a little bit more uncertain. Poetry can be a beautiful way for you to express your feelings and get them out there. Keeping in mind that things like songs are also forms of poems, right? In our video, Tupac, right? He had beautiful poems in his songs, and not even just in his songs. He has a book of poetry himself, right, that he's written, and it's quite beautiful. If you read through it, he has very evocative imagery, and he's very to the point, and it's very punchy and quite gorgeous. And then we have shorter things like I forget her full name, but it's Rupi K, I think her name was. She wrote the book Milk and Honey, and kind of put poetry sort of back on the map, especially for younger people. Beautiful poems, short poems, almost read like narrative pieces or like stories, little stories, but they aren't. They're poems, and they're beautiful. And they talk a lot about some of the things that she's been struggling with, and some of the things that she has been suffering with in terms of abuse, both mental and kind of alludes to this kind of maybe possibly physical abuse. But she uses poetry and she breaks a lot of rules and she makes her own rules, and there are certain elements that she uses that maybe if you don't understand poetry, you wouldn't even know that she's using them, but they're quite gorgeous. And we're going to take a look actually probably a little bit at hers, maybe a little bit at Tupac's too, now that I think about it. He wrote some beautiful poetry. So don't think about poetry as only people who wrote it like Wordsworth or, Sir Coleridge. It doesn't have to be kind of just older poetry. We'll take a look at some newer examples of poetry as well. So I really want you guys to just, my goal is really, I want you guys to have fun with it. If you found poetry to be taxing or scary in the past, especially with English and analyzing poetry, we're going to very much have fun kind of writing poetry. There's also an option to have descriptive pieces too. We'll also look at descriptive pieces. And today, like I said, the unit or the lesson that I want to go into will sort of go into both descriptive and poetic. They sort of get a little bit tied together in terms of what I'm looking for both. Okay, all of that preamble done, let's go into this lesson. So, if you scroll down, you will see one of my favorite artists' pictures. Let me just make this a little bit smaller so we can see it. His name is Jack Bishop. I'll write that down right here. He is a local painter. I think he's from either St. John or Fredericton, I can't remember, but he's a New Brunswick painter, either or, and I think his pictures for me are just like a treat to look at. They're so beautiful. He uses this like these vivid colors with these like dark, usually 4 middle grounds depending on his pictures, and it's just, he talks a lot about this idea of how we experience nature and how we see the most beautiful nature a lot of times is from our car or from cityscapes, right? This is the way that we're interacting with it, and I think he beautifully captures some of the sunsets that we see here. So all of that rambling aside, what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at this photo, and I'm going to ask you to try to find words to describe it. Okay, and we're going to go through kind of what all these words are in a moment, but just take a moment and pause this video. And I want you to think about what words you would use to describe this photo. Okay, so if you have a pen and paper handy, or if you are typing this, watching it maybe on your phone and typing it on a computer, I just want you to take a moment and I want you to write down, let's say like a minimum of at least 5 words. You can use phrases too, right? So I could say like gorgeous sunset or bright lights or dark woods. Okay, 5 words or phrases minimum, and see kind of what comes up to you naturally. This will help out the next part of this, what I'm going to ask you to do. So just take a moment, kind of look at those and gather some words. You can gather more than 5, you can gather up to 15, but okay, I'm going to stop talking. You're going to pause. Alright, I'm hoping you paused. If you haven't, you really should. If you have hit play, let's kind of go into what I'm asking you to do. Now, I'm going to have to come back and forth between this picture and the sheet a few times, so let's take a look at it. So the sheet below is a poetry language planner. This can also be a descriptive language planner. Oh, that's a P. Okay, so let's go through the kind of the first things. I'm going to pick some ones that maybe are a little bit easier first. Let's start with nouns. So nouns are used to name a person, animal, place, thing, or idea. Now, some nouns that we see in here maybe, and I won't write them all down, I'll give you maybe one or two examples. I'm going to use white because it's dark. So the first one I might do is trees. Let me do black here, right? So a tree might be something I see, okay? Another thing that I might see is the road. So take a moment and try to write down as many nouns as you can. I understand that you all don't have iPads with writing capabilities. You can just simply give me the list. So say if you were typing, it would say nouns, and you would just list them below. That's fine. But take a moment right now and list the nouns. Give me at least, let's say 5. Give me a good amount. I'm not going to count them, but if you have 2, you can do more than 2. I've written 2 out. So really take a look at this up here. What are the things that you see? Be specific. There's lots in here. Okay. The next one we're going to look at is a verb. Now, a verb is a doing word. They usually tell us about an action. Think of strong verbs if you really can. Sauntered, not walked. Grumbled, not said. So if I'm looking at the actions that are in this photo, a little trickier, but let's say right here we have a beautiful action. What is the sun doing? Well, the sun is... Okay, so sun is setting. I could say, ooh, I like this one. Darkness is falling. So try to think of some verbs that you could see in this photo. I want you to add a few more. See how many you can get. All right, you should have at least one more. You could also, try to imagine what the people like in the cars must be doing, right? Obviously, they're driving in some way, but what are they doing while they're driving? Okay, the next one that I want to look at, we're going to go through the parts of speech first. Adjectives. They describe words. They describe our nouns. Okay, so let me take the tree and the road again, and let me see if I could describe them. So our tree right here, so we have dark. The road is my next one. The road is long. So see if you could take those nouns that you looked at before and describe what they're like. I'll come back up here so you can kind of see it. Let me get rid of some of my drawing marks. Alright, hopefully you have more than a few at this point. Words in our planner. Okay, our next one, adverbs. Adverbs describe the way that something happens. So we have our noun and our adjective, and a little bit about our verbs, right? And I'm trying to keep the same sort of line and thinking. Adverbs for the tree. So the tree is standing strongly. It's a nice strong tree. The wind isn't blowing it. The road is leading steadfastly. Okay, so think about your nouns, think about the actions, and think about how they are doing those. Okay, we're going to get to some nice, really strong answers with these. Okay, so those are our parts of speech. Now, think about how we can describe things using alliteration. Now, alliteration is the repetition of sounds in a group of words. For example, ant Annie's alligator, lazy lion licks a lollipop. We're going to try to describe this picture with using alliteration. So I'll give you an example, and I'm going to see if you can come up with at least one for me. Okay? So if I go back to this picture, alliteration. Let's do the road. I like the road. The road is really calling to me right now. I mean, the sunset is also there and it's beautiful, but let's do the road. So, okay. So alliteration time. The road signals a straight. The road signals a straight. I want to say line. A straight. Ooh, let's do, okay. See, sometimes it takes a little bit of thinking to get this. Solitary, straight. The road. Ooh, the road steadfastly signals, because I had steadfast over there. The road steadfastly signals. Solitary, straight direction for the cars to follow. Okay, I know my writing's a little bit messy, I apologize. These are very tiny boxes. So, steadfastly signals a solitary straight direction for the cars to follow. Okay, I have 4 S's in that sentence. A little bit tricky, I'll give you that, but an interesting kind of way to describe how the road is going on. It's not wavering at all. It's steadfast, right? It's not changing its direction. It is quite a straight line in which we're going, right? We can only go in this straight line, and it doesn't waver. It doesn't change at all. So it's giving us this kind of one direction to go in. So I want you to take a moment, pause the video, and I want you to write down an example of alliteration somewhere that you could see where you could describe a noun and how it's doing things. So take from what you've already used, right? So maybe the trees, something about the darkness falling. It's dark, and I could describe that a little bit more. Now pick a letter. Maybe I have D and D, so darkness, maybe I can try to figure out something with that. Okay? Okay. Next one, onomatopoeia. Words that sound like the thing they are describing. These are like your boom, pow, right? Think about words that you could use to describe the photo that sound like what they are. First thing that's coming to my head is we have this idea of the sunset, and the sunset is doing like an kind of sounds like a yawn to me. Or maybe yawn would be a good one on its own. Again, sometimes these things take a little bit to think about, right? And that's okay. So I'm going to do this, the sky, or maybe just the word yawn, right? Yawn. Or the sky yawns. When you hear the word yawn, it makes you want to yawn. Just thinking about it. Okay. Continuing on, similes. Similes compare different things. They usually use the word like or as. So they make your writing more interesting. It doesn't just have to be a poem. It could also be your descriptive work. The greyhound sprinted as fast as lightning. All right, so a simile. The road went as straight as an arrow. Yep, that's what I'm doing. Okay. The road went as straight as an... I could write that neater. Sorry. Let me do this neater. I can do this. Make that bigger. The road went as straight as an Arrow. There we go. Technology, eh? Maybe I'll try to fix some of these other ones. Metaphors. Metaphors compare different things by suggesting that they are similar, not typically using like or as. The cloud was a thunderous monster. George was a silent stone when his teacher roared. Interesting examples. Okay, so I'm going to do the headlights. So, let me make this bigger. Ooh, technology. The headlights shone. Oh, the headlights, nope, were the headlights were lanterns. Showing us the path. Okay, so I'm likening it to this idea of lanterns and walking down kind of these scary corridors. Sure, why not? We're having fun with this, remember? This is not your final copy. So they don't have to be perfect metaphors. Lastly, personification. Non-living things have human qualities. Example, the moon winked through the cloudy sky. The daisies danced in the gentle breeze. I already know what I want to do. I thought about this when we were doing onomatopoeia with that yawning, right? So who yawns? People typically are the ones who are yawning. I'm going to make the sky. So the sun yawned in appreciation of a long day's work. Beautiful. Okay, the sun yawned in appreciation of a long day's work. Now, before when I was looking at this, right, if I were to describe this, I'd be like, oh, there's some cars, they're driving on a road, the road is straight, the sun is setting, there's some really pretty vibrant colors, there's lots of trees, the trees are dark, there's this empty space, people are driving in this direction, it's very beautiful. Okay, now, after I've gone through this planner, I have, this idea of the trees and, right, the trees and the sun setting with darkness falling, with the road steadfastly signaling a solitary straight direction for the cars to follow, that it's long and dark and the tree is standing strongly and the sky is yawning and the sun is yawning and the headlights are like lanterns that are showing us a path down that steadfast straight road and the road went on as straight as an arrow. There's a lot to pull in here now, right? There's a lot kind of going on. So, I've given you guys examples. There's lots going on in this photo. What I would like you to do is to do this on your own, right? Now, I know it can be kind of tricky. I describe this photo a lot. You can use this photo if you'd like. If you do not want to use this photo, all I ask is you simply copy and paste a photo in your page. For these, what we're going to do is we're going to go underneath your personal page. Go to like your unit 3, descriptive or poetic. And then you are going to paste the photo and to complete the sheet. I'll copy and paste another one below, and I'm actually going to keep all that in there so that you can kind of see what's going on. Okay, so give that a try. Have fun with it. I'm not going to ask you to do much else with that. I want you to see that you are practicing with some of these kind of expressions. If you want to blow me out of the waters, like go above and beyond, you can write it all up into a paragraph. Okay, your choice, but have fun with it, and I will see you guys tomorrow.